You know me as a real estate guy. You also might know that my partner Cody Barton and myself buy businesses. And so the question comes up all the time. Pace, I'm just getting started. I've got a 9-to-5 job and I've got a couple of hours every day that I can invest my time. Should I invest that time in learning how to do real estate or learning how to buy businesses? Well, when you look at us, the answer is both. But if we were going to start all the way over, we might have differing opinions of where we would go focus our time and our energy. And so in this video today, we're going to be talking about real estate or buying a business. I think, Cody, you lean on the buying business side, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, what's the first thing that comes to mind of why you wouldn't want to go back into buying real estate again?
I mean, when we're talking about like the beginning stage, it's like, okay, if you could put, let's say $50,000 or $75,000, $100,000 into a down payment and buy a house and cash flow $200 a month, or do the same on a business and cash flow $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a month, that is just the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, so I think here's the answer to the question, business or real estate. I'll give you guys the answer before we even get to the end of the video. You guys will hear our opinions on both sides, the pros, the cons, everything else. I think it comes down to the individual. So I'll paint a picture for you where for me, how I got into real estate was actually buying a business. Surprise, surprise, right? So I bought somebody else's franchise of We Buy Ugly Houses, and I was a Homevestor franchisee. I bought a business, which I think is actually one of the greatest ways to get started in business, to just buy a proven model from somebody who has systems, processes, etc. And they also have proven performers. So for me, I bought somebody else's business on Creative Finance. It was $135,000. I bought her franchise. She had bought it for $50,000. She sold it to me for $135,000, and she let me make payments to her on seller finance. So my business was actually going out and doing real estate. So the answer is you can do both. There are both that you can put together. It does depend heavily on your personality. So hopefully we can give you guys some value as we go back and forth today of what is your personality and where should you focus your time. So Cody, let's throw out some personality type, or let's throw out why you like real estate, or what do you like about real estate? What do I like about real estate? Then we'll talk about what we both hate about real estate.
Okay. Thing I love about real estate, depreciation, principal pay down, and just long-term appreciation where it's a good store of wealth for the long term. That's probably my favorite parts, and I'll kind of leave it at that for real estate.
Okay, so I like all of those things. I really do like the fact that Cody and I had a door knocking team. We did a bunch of wholesale deals for several years. We have real estate today that has hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity in it. So the appreciation growth is super nice. We have millions of dollars in our wealth tied up in these pieces of real estate, which is both good and it is also problematic of like, dang, we now have money in these houses. How do we get it out? So now we have to sell these 1030. I'm 1031ing, you're just getting out.
Yeah, getting out and then going to redeploy into, private money lending.
Okay, love
cash flow is great.
So a lot more Gator type of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Cody has his own Gator business. I have my own Gator business. He does his own. You're averaging like what, 16%?
Yeah, because I'll charge a point, 14% interest paid monthly, and if it goes past 6 months, another point.
Okay, cool. So Cody's doing Gator 2.0 stuff.
Yeah.
Gator 3.0 type of stuff. So he has his own Gator business. He's like, man, that makes me way more money faster. I'd like to sell my real estate that Pace and I own together and deploy that capital into making more active income. Cody doesn't mind paying the taxes. For me, here's the difference. I'm 13 years older than Cody. So for me, I'm like, I don't want to have as much cash at risk. I want to be able to sit on some of my houses and let them appreciate. Even a property that we're selling right now, we've got a house for sale that is actively under contract. Your mom's selling it.
Hobson. Yeah.
Okay, Hobson's under contract. We have like $100,000 tied up in the house.
Yeah.
You're going to take your money and do what with it?
I'm going to lend.
He's going to lend. I'm going to take my money and I'm 1031ing it into an RV park.
Yeah.
Okay. And my RV park, I really wish I could take my money and just put it into a lending business. The sad thing, guys, is that I've taken depreciation on these assets and now I'm kind of trapped in a prison, okay, of the depreciation prison of like, I've taken depreciation, the property, we haven't owned it long enough for me to like not have to pay that back. I would have depreciation recapture. So I'm actually rolling that money in. The house on Sonnet, that house, that's a good story actually.
Yeah.
That house has been a pain.
Yeah, it has been. It's just problem after problem.
Okay, so I like houses for, and I'll tell you one of the biggest mistakes I made is that if I could go back, I would have limited the amount of single family houses that I bought. I think you and I got to like 25 to 30 that we owned together or something like that. I think I should have capped my total single family portfolio combined with Cody and myself at like 25.
Yeah.
Here's what I like about real estate. I learned everything I now know came from learning wholesale, negotiating with wholesale sellers, like direct to seller. All of that conveyed into compounding and learning how to talk, learning how to work other deals. I see the assets, the houses as assets for sure, but also the skill sets that I acquired are assets that I make a lot of money in other endeavors. So I'm glad I started there. However, I look at the single family world and I stayed in there way too long. I'm at a point now where I'm not buying any more single family houses unless it's like really, really good in Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler, and it is primarily only co-living. If it's not that, I'm not touching it, right? Most of what I'm now doing is mobile home parks, RV parks. Dude, my 2 RV parks in Montana, one's making $13,000 a month net, one's making $21,000 a month net. I'm buying another one in East Texas right now, $25,000 a month net. No money out of my pocket. So for me, I like the ability to buy a cash flowing asset that doesn't require me to put any money into it. And I make cash flow on day one. The challenge, and I'll give you my downfall to real estate. I'll give you 50, actually. One of them is, do you know how to manage tenants? Do you know how to manage a day where there is no cash flow? Do you know how to manage your cash flow where you might have a month where $60,000 in pool repairs between 3 houses comes up? That happened to us this summer.
Yeah, literally 2 pools needed to be like literally completely like replastered. Pool equipment was junk and they're like, you just need to replace all of it. And then we had another one that needed to be replastered. It was just ridiculous.
Literally the same month. It was like, hey,
Yeah.
just so you know, Pace, this was our CFO, goes, hey, Pace and Cody, we needed $60,000 for repairs this month between our houses. That hurts. And so you've got to have a war chest of cash. And I think a lot of people that are new, that's a really scary thing because they're not managing their cash properly. Okay. Another one is you don't have control over the marketplace. So what's challenging in real estate is I'm basically susceptible, or I'm at risk compared to what the Fed is doing. I'm at risk compared to what the politics and the geopolitical environment looks like. I have no control, right? That asset grows or slows based on somebody else's decisions, which is really challenging. And so I'm basically like in it and I'm waiting and I'm hoping somebody else like does something about it so that the house can appreciate so I can roll that deal. Whereas a business that Cody and I have, Cody can make a tweak. He can add some technology. He can fix a process or a system. And the difference could be, hey, we're making 130 grand this month in revenue to $200,000 a month in revenue by fixing processes and systems. That has nothing to do with any other outside person making that decision other than us. So full control is not something you have in real estate. You're basically sitting by the wayside. What are some things you don't like about real estate?
I think when you're looking at too, like the active real estate versus like the passive, let's call it. It's not really that passive, but we'll call it passive. But you know, it's like the thing that I don't like on the wholesale side is like, you know, it becomes kind of like this hamster wheel. It is good money, you know, you can make really great money in it, but it's not a scalable asset you're going to grow and sell for a bunch of money one day, really. You know, the fix and flip side, you know, again, you can make good chunks of cash, but you know, again, it's another job that you have to essentially do. And then on the long-term, you know, rentals on the single family side, what I don't like is, you know, the cash flow. You know, it's like even depending on the markets you're in, obviously most of the properties we have together here in Arizona, the cash flow could be a couple $100 a month, $300, $400, $500 a month, but you have a repair that comes up that eats the last year and a half, you know, cash flow. And that's just part of the game. And then some you have that just perform and they're doing a good thing, but you know, that's just some of the unpredictability. And so some could argue, well, you just do the Burr method and it's like you fix everything. Stuff still breaks, tenants still break stuff. And so, you know, even when you redo everything, you sometimes are going to get hit with those types of bills.
Yeah, it does hurt. I mean, I tell people all the time, cash flows for children. If you're depending on cash flow, it's going to kill you. You can't depend on cash flow at all on single family properties. You can depend on cash flow on larger assets. But you can't depend on cash flow on single family properties because you have one tenant, they fail, they evict, you got to evict them, whatever. Oh my gosh, we had that lady with we had to sue during COVID to get her out of the house. You got people doing death threats against you and like looking you up to try and find out where your family lives. That's single family tenants. And when they don't pay, guess what? You're making a mortgage payment. Nobody else is covering that payment. Not only do you have to evict them, which takes a couple of months, now you have an empty property. You have to go in and clean them and get ready and then re-rent. You got 4 months, 5 months, sometimes 6 months of vacancy because you have one bad tenant. that's not just a year and a half of cash flow. That's like sometimes 3 years of cash flow on that property.
Yep.
And so if you're not buying in an appreciating market, it's really hard to justify the loss of cash flow. But luckily, Cody and I have had a lot of properties that I think the majority of our properties have appreciated significantly.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of them have been a little bit annoying, but for the most part, our real estate has really performed really, really well. The problem is, how do you scale it without just hoping that the market's going to appreciate? That is really, really challenging. So here's my argument for real estate. Everything Cody knows now today stemmed from best lessons he learned from being in, you were in an MLM for a couple of years, you learned sales, you learned marketing, you learned that stuff. Then learning how to generate your own leads in wholesale and understanding real estate and understanding contracts and tenants and issues and cash flow management and all that kind of stuff now compounds in your ability to run a business.
Yeah.
I will say that real estate is one of the greatest things. Wholesale, number one question I get about wholesale, what do you think it is? How do I get started in wholesale?
Yeah.
Number two question, what is it?
How do I get leads?
How do I get out of wholesale?
Oh.
So just so you know, Cody and I used to wholesale a lot together. Cody was wholesaling before he met me, and I was wholesaling for about 5-6 years before I met Cody. And we really don't wholesale anymore. I'll wholesale probably one deal every 2 months at this point where somebody brings it to me. But I'm not out there looking for wholesale deals because wholesale is kind of like kindergarten, first grade in terms of real estate. And I would say being a real estate agent, like retail, is like preschool. It's like, if you want to be a real estate investor, being an agent is not really the answer. Wholesale is a really good way for you to go, I'm going to get my feet wet. I'm going to get in, do a couple of flips a year. I'm going to get a small portfolio. But if you get a small single family portfolio, really what you're trying to do in a single family portfolio is get skill sets, relationships, and resources that will compound into something else. Then at that point, you really got to get into bigger things. Otherwise, your single family portfolio is never going to do it for you. There's a couple of people on YouTube, friends of ours actually, that are like, you can retire with 5 single family properties.
I mean, maybe if you wait 30 years after you pay them all off.
That's their thing. And that's not my speed.
Yeah, yeah.
My speed is like, they go, well, stay at your 9-to-5 job, get 5 rentals, wait till these 5 rentals are all the way paid off, and then there's your retirement. I'm like, bro, who are you talking to? People have no motivation. Like,
yeah.
Here's the thing is, once you get 5 single family properties, when you're at 0, the idea of getting 5 is a big deal. When you get to 5, you go, what the heck was I thinking that 5 was cool? Every single person I ever talked to is like, yeah, 5 was nothing. I should have gone for 25. I screwed up and went beyond 25. If I could, I would sell all my single family properties except for maybe 20, roll all of those into RV parks, mobile home parks, or mid-sized multifamily deals. And then probably in 10 years, I'm going to be like, I wish I only had A-class multifamily. So it's an evolution. It's a phaseology, right? It's like the caveman. It's like the freaking monkey turning into a caveman, turning into a businessman. Like, there is an evolution. And so you have to understand where you're at. You can skip the line on wholesale. You can skip the line on flipping, and you can skip the line on single family. If you, let's say you're a doctor, right? And you're like, man, I'm making $300,000-$400,000 a year. I've got a couple of days off every single week. I'm on call. I would say that person I would give very different advice to if they wanted to make more money. I wouldn't tell them to get into wholesale. Do you agree?
Yeah, no.
Hell no.
They're making a bunch of money. I think a lot of people get into wholesale because they don't make a lot of money at maybe their W-2 or whatever they're doing now. But if you're a high income earner, I mean, I think there's definitely a different path.
I think the path in that situation is one of two things. And here's my argument. You might disagree. I would say, here's what I would say. I would take some of my money and I would invest in somebody else's multifamily syndication.
Yeah.
50 grand, $100,000. And I would do that to get an education. And I would say, I'm going to learn how they run their projects. Where do they find their projects? And I'm going to maybe potentially at some point go do my own fund and get some of my other doctor buddies together. We invest together and we go and have a nice, amazing storage of wealth, like Cody said. What I would then do is I'd say, how do I replace my doctor income by maybe buying a business?
I mean, I think on that, it's like depending on, maybe they love what they do. Because it's like sometimes, and I think that's a conversation too, it's like some people that they're making 200, 300, 400 grand a year is like a high paid engineer, doctor, attorney, and they maybe love what they do. And they're like, I just want to like be, you know, diversify out my wealth. It's like going into that fund strategy, I think makes way more sense than them learning how to do it. Or maybe at some point, like you said, it's them doing like their own fund to fund with their doctors that they bring to a vetted operator. You know, I think makes a ton of sense. But if they're in the shoes of maybe they don't like what they're doing and they're like, man, like this was I was sold the wrong dream and now I'm in this thing, I'm making great money. They have the golden handcuffs, and you know, a business would be the good way out of that because they could get the cash flow back of, you know, it's hard to, you know, if somebody's, you know, needing to replace that income, it's like they got to replace 20 grand, 30 grand, 40 grand a month. You know, what are you going to do to replace that? Like,
Yeah, and I think that the popular thing to talk about on YouTube is that like people go buy a car wash, buy a laundromat. So we have a student, Benjamin Wong. He just bought a laundromat. It's producing $20,000 a month in revenue, but it's not really making much money because he's taking that money and reinvesting it into the company. And I look at that and I'm like, how do you scale a laundromat?
Just buy more of them.
Buy more, right? And so that's a challenging prospect that I look at as well, is like, I'm at a phase, Cody's at a phase that I don't think we would really ever take a look at a laundromat unless it was like right in our backyard and it'd be kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But that's not a scalable business model.
No.
And so, but if I'm a stay-at-home mom,
yeah, sure.
there you go.
And
so
you need to replace like 3, 4, you could make an extra 3, 4 grand on the side or 2 grand or whatever it is. And it's not like, you know, something that needs to replace a full-time living income.
Right. Now, I think what Benjamin Wong will do, and by the way, guys, if you want to see that video that we did with Benjamin Wong, how did he find the deal? I taught him how to buy laundromats with no money out of pocket. He buys this deal. It's a really great structure. The seller sells it to him for 400 grand. She says, I want 50% down, 200,000 down. He goes, okay, great. So he goes and gets financial partners from the Subto group. They all bring 200,000 to the table. He brings the 200,000 to close escrow, and she says, thank you for the 200,000. I'm going to rip up the $200,000 you owe me. Literally at the table, takes the promissory note, rips it up. She says, you owe me nothing.
Wow.
Unbelievable deal. So he has a deal. He bought a laundromat for $200,000. He brought in partners, so he has no like
Personal capital in it.
personal cash in it. Those investors are going to start getting obviously dividends on their money. And I look at that, I go, if I was Cody and Pace, I would not buy that business.
No.
But if I'm Benjamin and I'm just getting into buying businesses, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I can get my feet wet. I can start compounding my learning of how do I hire people? How do I do this? And I can learn that laundromat is not about the cash flow. That laundromat is more about, I'm going to learn. I'm going to get involved and see what these things are and learn terminology. How do I cash flow? How do I pay my taxes? Those types of things. And I would get rid of that laundromat as fast as possible.
Yeah.
There's no way you're getting me to buy a laundromat ever. So I think it comes down to also when you're competing or real estate to buying a business, you have to identify, are we comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges? So buying a business, also like think about this. I want to buy a business tomorrow. What's the best business for me to buy? In my opinion, franchise.
Interesting.
Because think about it. Like let's say somebody buys the Perfect Clean. They come in along and they buy a Perfect Clean franchise.
Yeah.
You have already figured out all the issues, the problems.
Yeah.
Now somebody comes along and goes, hey, Cody, I want to buy a Perfect Clean franchise. I can make $20,000 a month potentially. I can make $10,000 a month, $8,000 a month running a cleaning company. Pretty simple.
Not a complex business model.
You don't have inventory.
No.
You're not having to like have a storefront. You technically don't even need to have an office.
Yeah, no, the franchisees, they'll just run it out of their garage, keep their cleaning supplies there, get a couple cars, that's it.
So there you go. If that's your first business, you go, all right, I'm sick of my job. I want to make $100,000 a year. I'm going to go and buy an existing franchise model. Why? Because if you buy a franchise model, you not only get the franchise and the systems and the processes, you also get a mentor, the person who actually is the head office. You can go, hey, I have an issue here. What would you do in this situation, right? You have basically an angel on your shoulder for any problem that you run into.
That's so true. You know, when you initially said that, in my head I was like, I don't know if I agree, but then I went back and I'm like, you know, most people, especially if they're going into like one of their first deals, they're not going to have the business acumen to just know how to like go in and fix whatever the business they go into. Where if you have more of a proven model of like, hey, this is how you should do everything. Here's the training, the materials. They just have to follow the process and stick to the plan. and they could be successful, versus they go into a business that has problems, and if they've never solved those problems, they're going to, honestly be floundering unless they get, consultants to come in and help them or something like that,
Yeah, like when I bought my Homevestor franchise in 2013, I think it was, I buy this franchise. I didn't understand lead generation. I didn't understand pipeline management. I didn't understand conversion, follow-up. I didn't understand these things because as a contractor, as a solopreneur, right? Think about this, everybody in the audience. I think the statistic, I've heard this from Cody a couple times, is 93% of businesses will never go past $1 million a year or more in revenue. And the reason being is because they don't understand all these things. A franchise, when you buy it, is basically a business in a box. It's like, you're going to have to worry about this, things that you didn't even know in order to get you past that $1 million a year in revenue, which is the exclusive 7% club. Very, very few businesses ever get there. And so I think a franchise gets people to understand what they don't even know or questions they don't even think to ask. Another way to do that is, I know we've done it. I think a lot of people should do it, is go, all right, I have a business. Me and my construction company, I look back now, I started the company from scratch. I hired people from scratch. I learned everything I possibly could from potentially YouTube or other contractors. I got rid of that business. I didn't even sell it. I just got rid of it.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now, I would have just hired you. I would have been like, what am I doing wrong? Help me fix this. I've got freaking $800,000 this month in revenue, but I have no idea where my money's going and what the hell is going on. I don't even know what questions to ask. I don't know if I have good culture fits. So if you guys are out there and you're saying, I already have a business, I've got a plumbing company, an electrical company, I've got this, that, and the other, I need help. You're telling me to go buy a franchise? No. I'm not telling you to buy a franchise. You should go and hire Cody. Okay, because Cody goes and runs the companies that we go and buy or we consult for. If you guys need help with your business, you're generating $20, $30, $40, $50,000 a month in revenue. How can people get your help?
I mean, we'll put a link in the description, and really what we do is, we look at everything from like a holistic view of like, same thing. You go to the doctor, you get a checkup. We essentially go through this checkup process, like how's your tech, how's your finance, how's your ops, we kind of have that conversation and kind of identify like what are the next steps for your particular business to make those changes to increase the profitability, reduce expenses, and to continue to scale and create more of a self-managing company too. Like that's the big thing, is like we want to help people create self-managing companies where they don't have to be a slave to their business too. Because what's the point of making great money if you are a slave to everything every day in your business and you can't even go on vacation?
Yeah, we're getting to that point in the last couple of years where it's like there's businesses we own that generate revenue that don't need 20 hours a day of attention, right? Like, and I actually feel guilty about it. Do you ever feel guilty? Like, oh, I made money today on a business that I actually didn't put a lot of effort into?
Yeah, I think.
Or am I the only idiot?
Huh?
Am I the only idiot?
No, I mean, I feel like that's a thing. If like you're not giving attention to something, you can kind of just be like, is it okay? Is everything all right over there? And like, you gotta like,
I just feel guilty. I'm like, I have this blue collar mentality of like, I have to be the one that's working and swinging the hammer and picking up the wood and dropping off the job site. I have this mentality and I have to like convince myself. And so it has been really nice working with really good partners, Cody being one of my partners that does this stuff, that puts the systems, the processes in place that the company can actually self-manage. So if you guys are somebody, it's like Ryan LaRue, one of our customers, is like, I have a roofing company that's making a lot of money, but I don't know where the money is going.
Yeah.
You basically are like, let's find out if you're actually making money or if you're just reporting that you're making money.
Or your bookkeeper that you were hoping was doing the correct way is misreporting it. And now you're wondering why you're not making the money you thought you were because they just weren't leading you correctly.
Right. And if you guys are looking for a resource for that, you guys are like, that's where I'm at in my business, get with Cody, link in the description, make sure that you guys have somebody take a look at your business, whether it's consulting for your business or maybe even getting some coaching from Cody. Great place to go, great place to get some help. Cody combined, you are part of probably, between all the businesses that we run, you're probably part of $40 million a year or so in collective revenue. We've got a full-time CFO, full-time COO, whole entire suite of people running the systems, the processes, all of those types of things. You guys need help with that. Make sure you guys click a link in the description down below. Okay, real estate. If I could go back 6 years ago, I would have said 10 single-family homes to 25 single-family homes, done.
Yeah.
I checked the box. I'm done. I think that a lot of people go back and say, don't get into single family. Like Grant will say, don't get into single family. That's where he started.
Yeah.
Dina Jetty will say, don't get into single family. That's where she started. They learned business acumen. They learned things that compounded in what they're doing now today. So I wish I could go back in a time machine and go, hey, believe in yourself. You can do some larger multifamily. You can do, like, we've got an asset in Tucson, 160 unit. We bought for $20 million on seller finance. That thing shells out a paycheck to me every single month of 35 grand a month. Holy crap. There's a team that runs it. I'm not involved. And so I would make an argument, if I could go back and double down on my efforts, I would have done way more of that. I have an RV park that does 3 RV parks that are doing well and a 4th that's coming online that's doing really, really well. But these, in essence, I would even make the argument that they're actually businesses, not real estate.
I mean, it really is a business when you're thinking about like those bigger assets, because it's like
Marketing, websites, leads, conversion.
You have a whole team, a whole, like, they have meetings and like operations and like there's all sorts of, I mean, it's not just a buy it and then, I mean, there's people that are probably on site at some of those properties that are like doing the leases and, oh, maintenance guy that's running around fixing the toilets, fixing, oh, there's a roof this, and it's like you got a whole
outside
operation.
Contractors, outside consultants, outside people. You've got all sorts of things. It's an entire ant farm of people and activity. And so I look at multifamily very similar to the way we look at a business. So essentially, I would say they all kind of take the same amount of time, but buying a business is great. Here's a couple of reasons why buying a business is, I think, here's a good argument for it. Do I need to go and buy a business and save it from the depths of hell in order for me to buy a business?
No, which I would actually recommend that for people, especially when it's one of their newer ones, buy a good business at a fair price that's already profitable versus, us taking on a couple of these deals where they were, on life support in some ways, going back,
Life support is a very generous term. One of them was like nearly dead,
or flatlined, and resuscitating with the, and so that definitely added some wrinkles under my eyes going through those. But so I would say, for those that are looking at that, buy a good business at a fair price.
Where would people look?
I mean, there's multiple places. Like you have the websites, which is like the MLS of business, like Biz Buy Sell, which, not the best deals on those types of websites, but you can go and look at, deals on those sites. And then, otherwise it's through a lot of networking with brokers on the business buying side. It's like, which I think, I'm not an expert on multifamily, but I think that's where a lot of deal flow gets passed around is the brokers. The brokers are holding the deals. They know what's coming down the pipeline. They know when their particular client's going to be bringing a deal to market. So I think networking with brokers is one of the best ways to find the off market. But then also, you can go online to find those opportunities too. As far as, some outreach, otherwise the old school way of, cold calling businesses that are like in the niche that you're looking for. And that's another way that people can go.
You won't do that though.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, you won't do it. Like when I tell people, hey, just pick up the phone and dial, you'll be like, oh my gosh, what do I say? How do I say it? What if they say this? What if? In a lot of ways, I think working through a broker is a lot better because the broker is going to tell you what questions you should be asking. Cody's right about just going with the broker for your first one. Or honestly, like, guys, buy a franchise from us. Buy the Perfect Clean. Like, get a franchise with us. You buy one of those franchises. Our in-house company will do, let's say, going into 2025, what will that franchise do? Not our franchise, but the headquarters. Will we do $1.5 million in 2025?
I mean, I think we'll probably do like $3.5 to $4 million next year.
$3.5 to $4 million on one location.
On our corporate here in Arizona, yeah.
Holy crap! Do you know what our net will be on that?
Our net, the target is to be at 20%, 18 to 20%.
That's like freaking $600,000.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Why couldn't a franchise just buy the Perfect Clean franchise and get to that point in 2 or 3 years?
I mean, they'd have to get multiple locations because they get a certain amount of zip codes.
I see. Okay, got it. Okay, so a franchise, they're going to be somewhere between like $80,000 to $150,000 based on location.
Yeah, totally. And they can't buy one, unfortunately, in Arizona because corporate owns all that. So,
sorry, guys. If somebody wants to buy a franchise in the future, let's say they're watching this in 2026, where could they go to buy a franchise? Just theperfectclean.com?
Yeah, so theperfectclean.com, and there's, the franchise section. You can get information about, the financials and what that process looks like.
Yeah, and I think going through a franchise model is a lot better because you don't know what you don't know. But more importantly, you can start and within 30, 60 days, your company's making money and you know what to do, what the first steps are, you go and get corporately trained. I never got corporately trained when I started my construction company. Are you kidding me? It was just like post on Craigslist and hope somebody hires you. I don't know how to price this. What do I do? How do I build this person? All of those types of things. That stuff gets figured out on a franchise model. From, let's say somebody already owns a business. How do they decide whether they should sell their business right now, get out because they hate it, or fix it because the reason why they hate their business is because they don't know what the hell is going on? How do they know?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's like, if the business is like, let's call it working and like good, you have good revenue, like there's good revenues going in the business, but you're hating it. Like the question I'd ask, is it because you are tied to the business? So, it's that business owner asking, like, good question to ask. Could you leave your business today for 2 weeks, a month, and would everything continue to run without you there? If you cannot say yes to that, that's because you set up the business incorrectly. You didn't set it up in a way where you have a team in place, you have systems, you have processes in place to continue having things run, and it's not owner dependent. And I think that's the worst place to be as a business owner, is that solopreneur where maybe it's you and a couple people. Like, you have to build the business big enough where you can have a team so you actually get the freedom that most of these business owners wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
Instead of being a slave to the business.
Yeah, and if somebody is in that position, like Cody, you just described me, how can they get help?
I mean, for us, like, we're happy to, have a conversation and see and kind of just point out some of those things. Worst case, if you click the link in the bio, book a call with our team, we have a conversation, kind of just look under the hood a little bit of like what you're doing. Oftentimes in those conversations, it's the things that you don't even know that you don't know that we point out and, create some of those light bulb moments for people.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably even know some of the stuff they need to do in the back of their mind, but they're kind of like ostriches where they put their head in the sand. They go, I know I'm behind my taxes. I know my sales team needs to be remanaged and rehired. And I know that I need to replace this, this, and this, but like, I'm making money right now, so it's okay. And I'm not going to do anything about it. Guys, I would suggest you get on the phone call with Cody and the team. And the reason being is because they can help you walk through it rather than just be out there doing it on your own, right? Like, think about having an expert team that's all they do is they come in like a SWAT team and they're like, all right, where are the hostages? Let's get these hostages out of here. You guys got a lot of hostages in your business. You need somebody to pull these things out. Now, as we wrap up, I want to point out Cody Sanchez, good friend of mine. She was just texting me right before we got on the podcast. She just launched a company called Biz Scout where you can go on there and buy businesses. And she actually has an owner finance filter now, which is really awesome. So from a creative finance standpoint, you can find the businesses that are already willing to do owner finance. Biz Buy Sell already has that filter, but it's not as efficient as what Cody's put on Biz Scout. Okay, Cody made a comment and has made this comment multiple times to people on podcasts, and I completely disagree. Let's see what Cody says. She says, real estate is not a business that you can make money in. It's a place where you store your wealth in. And I'm like, I think that's a very simplified way of saying that. I disagree. I made millions of dollars. Cody and I both made millions of dollars in wholesale. We made millions of dollars in fixing and flipping. Is that not real estate? I made a lot of money in fixing and flipping and wholesaling. A lot.
Yeah, I think she's just oversimplifying that. I think I definitely don't agree with it either. I mean, if you're wholesaling and fix and flipping, you can make millions and millions and millions of dollars doing that. Like, I guess if she's talking about
the BRRRR strategy is definitely the model.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just going and buying rentals that way, like, yeah, like you're just storing money in it. But like, if you're doing the active income in real estate, which is wholesaling, which is doing the fix and flipping, like, yeah, I don't agree with that.
I think, let's say that you're at a 9-to-5 job, you're a high income earner, you're making a couple $100,000 a year. I think if you're trying to get started in real estate or buying a business, I would almost argue that the only involvement in real estate you should do is maybe invest in somebody else's fund for a couple of years, learn it that way, but then spend more of your time and energy actually buying a business and replacing the active income you currently have before you go out and venture out on your own and do real estate. Definitely, I think one of the worst models people do is they're at a 9-to-5 job and then in their side hustle, they're doing the BRRRR strategy that's sucking up all their cash.
Yeah.
And so then they come to me in the DMs or they come to YouTube in the DMs, but it's the way people think.
Yeah.
If you're that person, if you're going to go do the BRRRR model, just go buy a business. It doesn't make any sense to me to go and suck up a lot of cash of your own personally. Most of the deals that Cody and I own to this day were deals that didn't take really much of our cash. Like the house on Sonnet, that house on Sonnet, how did we bought the house? I think it was like a $400,000 house.
Yeah, I think we bought it somewhere in the, I think it was like 465 and I don't know, 15, 20, 35, somewhere around there, 1,000 down on
I
it.
think we
And
gave $10,000
I can't
down.
remember.
We have 10 grand down, and then we paid Katie,
Oh,
who
yeah,
was
yeah.
involved in the deal. She
Yeah.
got paid 10 grand.
Yeah.
Our closing costs were 5. So we were into a $460,000 house for $25,000. Our interest rate is what?
2%.
2%. So like if you're going to buy real estate, skip the BRRRR strategy, just do creative finance.
Yeah, absolutely.
On Sonnet, has that one appreciated for us?
Yeah, I think it'll end up, unfortunately, the market's kind of softened a little bit this year and, as we're selling it, but, we'll still end up selling it probably around 700, and we bought it for 465. We probably spent like 80 in furnishing it plus, finishing.
We'll make like 120 grand on the house.
Yeah, over, a few years of owning it.
Okay. I'll take that all day long. So if you're going to do real estate that way, where you're deploying very little into the deal, you wait for it for a couple of years and you make 120 grand, you roll it into something else. I'm all about that. What I'm not all about is what people are doing is 30% down payments. You're getting interest rates at 6%. Guys, the BRRRR strategy is dead. Go back to 1997 in your time machine and tell yourself, just buy a business, right? And then how should somebody determine what kind of business they should buy? Do you have any key points or maybe a YouTube video you've done about this?
Yes, I would look at there's 3 columns that you could break it up to. So if you took out a piece of paper, on the far left column, you write out all of your professional skills that you have as an individual, because this is a very individualized approach.
Give me a couple of those.
Sales, sales or marketing, negotiation. It could be leadership skills. It could be you're very tech savvy. You know how to run Facebook or Google Ads. Whatever that is. Maybe you're great at hiring people. So whatever those individualized professional skills.
Maybe you're already a dentist or you're already doing the thing.
Yeah, something within your experience. The middle column that I would look at is, okay, well, if those are your professional skills, then what are all the things that are potentially interesting or of interest to you? It's I like dogs, I like cars, I like this, I like leading people, I like building teams, whatever all of those things are. And it could be just listing it out. It doesn't mean you're going to get in that type of business, but it helps create this filtering mechanism. Then the third column is looking at, based off of the goals of the individual, what type of business would they want to get in based off of the types of cash flow. For me, now going forward, I don't ever want to be involved in a business that can't be at least 20% net profit or more. I don't want to do it. Life's too short to be in low profit businesses. So I want to look at, and how do you find that out? Go to Google, type in average net profits, and you could, find, based off of your skills, based off of the things that you're interested in, what are all the types of businesses that could, mirror, match up with some of the skills that you have that could be within the interest that you have in the types of businesses. Okay, maybe you list out 10 or 15 types of businesses that, fit within those two. Okay, well, out of those 10 to 15, only 5 of them actually can achieve the type of profit that you want based on the net. Those are probably the types of businesses you want to go into. So it's a very individualized answer because everyone has their own unique skills, their own unique interests, and their own unique goals.
This is so much of a parallel with real estate and buying a business in the sense of single family is kind of like that business model where it's it's going to make less money than you think it is.
Yeah.
And it also if you're going to go into business, it's okay to buy a laundromat or car wash as one of your first businesses, only just to own it for a year or two to learn. But really, you're going to get capped at your ability to grow based on outside parameters. And so what I would do is then sell that business or sell your single family real estate and compound it to things that are 20% net margin or more, and things that you're not tied to one single location. Like the Plant Guy, what's great about the Plant Guy, as much as you don't love the product-based business, that's a nationwide business. It doesn't matter where our location is.
Which they weren't nationwide. Actually, that's another thing with that business. They weren't nationwide when we started.
It was all in Southern Florida.
All in Florida. Yeah. They had a couple one-off things out of state that were kind of messy projects, but it's now it sells nationwide.
It's freaking awesome. We can't do that with a car wash. You can't do that with a laundromat. And so you look at those types of things and go, can I grow this business long-term? Or is this where I'm going to get my PhD in running a business? And that's okay. Sometimes you buy a business and you go, I'm going to get a PhD. The Plant Guy, above all else, has given you a PhD in a lot of things.
There's lots of learnings, lots of character building and learnings on that deal.
And dealing with visionary personality types and all sorts of things. Cody.
And the salespeople, it's these are designer salespeople. So it's you add in this other flair of designer, creative personality.
On top of having a salesperson.
Yeah. So that's
oh,
that's
my word.
That's been a learning for sure.
Here's my last argument on owning real estate. Real estate does not talk back.
That's the good part about it.
A single family piece of real estate can't just wake up one morning and go, I quit. They can't steal things from you. Now there are parallels here of like, hey, you can have a tenant take advantage of you and all that kind of stuff. But while that's happening, the property probably, like I've got a property right now on Sterling. I'm selling Sterling right now.
Oh yeah.
And it's under contract. It's closing in like a week or so. I've got $380,000 in appreciation since I bought that thing.
That's awesome.
Insane. I've got a check coming. Great house. And even though that house is giving me a big fat check for 380, it's rolling into our East Texas RV park right now. It was a property that sat vacant for 7 months. Why? Fully furnished, gorgeous, made a bunch of money on cash flow. Here's what sucked about it. The HOA comes along and goes, you can't do Airbnb anymore. We're making new CCNRs. Airbnb is outlawed. I'm like, oh, they're not going to catch me. They caught me. I got fines. I got all that stuff. So in essence, real estate does talk back. But while it did talk back, the property continued to appreciate, which kind of nice. And so it's one of those things I love about real estate where I'm like, okay, cool, I have a problem, but I know long-term it's going to make money. What I fear with businesses is that, let's look at, you and I actually own a business. I won't go into it, but we own a business where technology coming out is going to put the old way of doing that business out of business.
Yeah.
So it's like you either have to adapt or you have to sell and get out of that business.
Yeah.
And so what I worry about that is like real estate doesn't really have that problem, right?
No.
I don't have to go hire a sales manager. I don't have to go hire this. I don't have to learn how to be a great leader. So for the people, here's my argument for you. If you're lazy, you don't want to learn how to be a leader, you want to learn how to put an organization together, and you don't want to learn how to go dominate the world, and you want to stay at your 9-to-5 job and just have a peaceful retirement, I would argue that just buying real estate is the way to go.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I mean, being in a business, you have to like the people business. Like, if you're going to grow a team, because, like, you got to get people to do stuff, and, like, you got to, like, motivate them to do the stuff, and, like, get them to follow through and have conversations when they're having a bad day. You know, it's like, as far as if you're going to, like, manage the organization. So it's like, business is very much people-centric versus real estate. You can.
I make an argument that buying a business is a little bit more advanced than real estate.
Oh, absolutely.
And the number one reason is people. The number two reason I think is most people I see come through YouTube or my Instagram DMs are like, should I buy a business or should I buy real estate? I'm like, you can't even open up Zoom, let alone manage your own emails, and you want to go buy a business? Like when you buy a business, you're adopting, like think about what you did when we bought the plant guy. You didn't just buy a company, right? We didn't just buy a company. You had to adopt 27 new employees or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Their problems, their culture,
yeah,
their expectations of you,
yeah,
their expectations of the company, their pent up reserve. Like if you can't even open up your Zoom account and figure out how to change your Zoom name,
yeah,
literally this is a problem for people. And you can't check your email. Like I get people who go, hey Pace, I saw the webinar you have coming up on Saturday for Gator. I didn't get the email.
Did you click the spam filter?
If that's you, probably avoid buying a business because you're going to be running into much more significant issues than how do I log into Zoom and get into a webinar that's very simple. And so be self-aware. If you're a bonehead, don't go buy a business. If you're a bonehead, it's better for you to buy a piece of real estate and stay at your job, honestly.
Yeah,
nobody. What's funny is, do boneheads think that they're boneheads?
Usually not, but you know, that's self-aware.
Are you a bonehead? We want to know in the comments down below. Please let us know. Now, guys, if you're trying to get somebody to help you with your business, Cody is the guy. You guys can go over and check out his YouTube channel for sure. Follow him on Instagram. But you can also have Cody and our company take a look at consulting for you. You can also take a look at hiring Cody as a coach. Cody has a company called Scale with Pros where he is helping companies that are in a very specific revenue range scale to the next level and get to a point where that business doesn't own you any longer, but you actually own that business and you can get back to owning your time. So go down to the link in the description down below, check that out. And on your way down there, leave a comment of where you currently are in your business and let me know, are you a bonehead? We'll see you in the next video.